Bev, looks like you still have poor taste in men. Billy, you still have a stutter, you loser. Hey, Wheezy, how's your sex life? Mike, you're a loser, you still haven't left town. I don't know if this is like a canon event for everyone, but did everyone have like an older sibling that put on a scary movie on the TV back when we had cable and you could put it on like any channel? And they would just leave the scary movie on and like you just end up watching it somehow. I feel like that happens so many times to me. I have an older brother who's 8 years older than me. So granted, he was watching much more mature content than I was when I was younger. I can remember the first scary movie I ever watched was It, the original It with Tim Curry as Pennywise. Holy fuck. I remember being so scared after watching that movie because keep in mind, at this point, I'm like 6 years old, maybe five or six, which I know you might not believe me that I remember this, but I vividly remember watching the TV. I remember my brother had put it on and it was on like the Sci-Fi channel. I did not watch this from the beginning. I watched this towards the end of it. Like I didn't see the whole movie by any means. I just saw a couple clips. But I remember specifically seeing the scene where Tim Curry, Pennywise, turns into a giant spider. I remember being so afraid, and ever since then, I think my fear of spiders started probably because of that. I remember that wasn't the last time that I watched a scary movie by accident. The second time I watched a scary movie by accident, you guys aren't gonna believe me, but I don't fucking care. Like, I know this is my truth. This is my truth, and I'm here because I want to speak on my truth. My brother put on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I remember watching the scene where they're in the field, I think. And I remember it's the one from the 2000s because at this point, we were living in a different house. My dad had come back. We were a little happy family. I remember watching that movie in the background, and again, it was one of those, like, I did not watch it from the beginning, obviously. I just watched snippets of it. And my brother, I remember he would just tell me about, like, gory things and, like, be like, oh, yeah, he's a real person and he's gonna come and get you. I mean, he was absolutely torturous towards me, but, like, I guess what older brother isn't? Anyways, I do sometimes wish I had an older sister instead of an older brother. I remember his girlfriends would come over and they would be so nice to me and I'd be like, why the fuck didn't I get an older sister? Those are like the earliest memories that I have of watching horror. And now as I got older, I obviously am a huge horror fan. I love watching horror movies. Outside of Halloween, I watch them pretty much year round. I'm kind of a psycho too. Like sometimes I'll put them on to go to sleep. But honestly, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because scary movies are so dark and quiet most of the time. So it's kind of like really nice background white noise, besides the scenes where people are screaming. But usually I'm asleep by then, so it's okay. I just think it's so funny that at such a young age, I was introduced to horror, and I don't know if that's why I'm a horror fan today. One of the other things that I remember watching when I was 12 or 13, I remember I was in 6th grade, I think. I had my group of friends, and we all went to watch The Woman in Black in the movie theaters. Again, another movie that I was way too young to be watching. And I remember there was a scene with a rocking chair, and the rocking chair was moving back and forth. And my friends would not stop joking around, being like, oh my God, she's getting busy, you know, because it was kind of like that squeaky bed sound. I was scared. Okay, I was scared. And it's not that I didn't want to be watching this movie. Like, obviously, watching a scary movie to me, like, has always given me a little bit of a thrill. I remember that night when I went home, I remember being in my room and a key part of The Woman in Black, if you haven't seen it, is that the Woman in Black is obviously like this old-timey woman. I don't even know what year, like 1800s or something. She's dressed in all black, obviously, she's the Woman in Black, but she also is like pale and like has like this like gray color to her, and she's tall too. She's tall as fuck. Like, it's crazy. And she stands in the corners of rooms. Like, At like right now, I'm scared to turn around and look because like I'm scared she's gonna be in the goddamn corner. Um, but I was terrified of the corners of my room when I went home after watching that movie. The thing also about the woman in black is that if you see the woman in black, that means she is gonna kill you. I remember, like, after watching that movie, I was convinced that my room was haunted by the woman in black. Even to this day, sometimes I will open my door a crack to let the light in from the hall because I'm scared and I think she'll be in the corner behind my door and I'm a little bit scared still. I feel like that's like a canon event, watching scary movies when you're way too young to be watching them. And there's a 50-50 chance of you either turning into a horror fan or turning into someone who absolutely despises horror movies. I just want to like talk about how crazy the impact of the first It was for me. Like, I loved the original It so much. Like, it was honestly, it's probably still my favorite scary movie because it's just such a classic for me, and I think it brings back that nostalgia of, like, this was the first scary movie I was ever introduced to, even though I was only obviously introduced to, like, a couple scenes. And also, I'm definitely a huge Stephen King fan. I've read so many of his books so far. I've read It, I've read The Shining, I've read Doctor Sleep, I've read Misery, Shawshank Redemption, uh, The Body. I'm missing some. This was like my first introduction to him, and I didn't really start to pick up his books until I was like a senior in college, until I was like a freshman in college, I think is when I bought it for the first time. It introduced me to this aspect of horror where like monsters can double as real life themes. Horror can double as real life themes, and obviously that isn't the case for a lot of scary movies, but I feel like Stephen King tries to do that a lot with his books of like giving horror a double meaning. The original It starts out with a little girl seeing Pennywise. Oh my god, I forgot how scary Tim Curry is as Pennywise. Holy shit. Guys, I'm scared. He's so good at looking scary, and this is why I remember it so vividly. It's because his face is so memorable. His face as Pennywise is absolutely terrifying. Mike is kind of the same character. He's still like in Derry and he's obviously been waiting for Pennywise to make his comeback. So now he's calling everyone, just like in the newer It, and obviously just like in the book, to let everyone know that Pennywise is back to Derry and we all need to reconnect. Bill is also the same here. Bill is like that same character of an author, which if you don't know, it's obviously a play on Stephen King. He still has the stutter. He still has a little brother, Georgie. What did they give Tim Curry for his eyes to be so GD red? Like, oh my god, why are they so red? This is why he's so creepy. And okay, this is one thing I was kind of like about the new Pennywise. The new Pennywise, well, okay, the old Pennywise also has a big forehead, okay? New Pennywise has a huge forehead too. But why is it that this Pennywise was like giving more creepy clown? Like the original Pennywise was giving more creepy clown? Is it like, okay, I think I know why. I've just thought of it. I think the reason why is that Tim Curry's makeup is like very clown, I put it on myself makeup, which I think adds to the creepiness. It's like kind of giving that creepiness of, fuck, what's that guy's name who's a serial killer? In this original It, Pennywise just looks more of like a normal creepy guy, whereas the Pennywise played by Alexander Skarsgård in the newest adaptation, he looks more like not a real person. Like he looks more like a fake clown. Not fake, but he just looks more supernatural, more like this guy's got something up his sleeve. It's almost like the new Pennywise is like yassified. You know, he's kind of like He's got like Instagram face. Tim Curry does not have Instagram face. One thing I do love about the new Pennywise is when he says to Georgie, like, here, Georgie, like, take it. Oh my god, I love how he says that. It's one of my favorite lines in that movie. In this movie, he doesn't say it that way. That's totally fine. Like, Tim Curry, I still love your delivery, but holy shit. Maybe that also played into why Tim Curry's Pennywise is kind of creepier, because he's just like this guy. He's like, come on, Georgie, take it. Like, he doesn't really, like, again, like, he doesn't really play into this, like, I'm a character. He is like a weirdo, creepo. Like, why does he sound like a guy from, like, Brooklyn or, like, a guy from The Sopranos? Another thing I want to say is the costume for the 1990 Pennywise. It's so much more clown, silly, like, I'm a clown. It's just, again, it goes back to the new Pennywise. He's just a little too put together. You know what I mean? Like, he's not like, he's like, I got this costume custom made, tailored to my body. I'm rocking it. Is it the body or the fit? I don't know, but it's like it's hugging him in all the right places. This Pennywise did not give a fuck. Like, the original Pennywise, Tim Curry's Pennywise, was like, give me all the colors. I don't care. I got this clown suit from Spirit Halloween and I'm about to eat some kids up. Like, style-wise and, like, literally. So I don't know, maybe that's, again, like, the appeal to me of the original one. It's just a little less. Obviously the new one is so good, okay, because it had, like, an amazing production and it's HD amazing. But this is why I love old horror, because it just has this campiness that you just cannot recreate today. You just cannot. It's so hard to make a movie camp today because the quality is too good. We've gotten too good with things, I think. Like, maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but you know what? I'm sticking with my opinion. Okay? I'm sticking with my opinion. Obviously, they did not have CGI. Like, they didn't have the technology that we have today. So them just doing close-up shots of Tim Curry with the fake teeth and the colored contacts, it's just, like, clear, like, you couldn't get him to open his mouth. Well, it's not like Alexander Skarsgård was opening his mouth that wide either. Obviously, it was, like, CGI, but something that I don't find scary as an adult is their different fears. But obviously these are kids, like, these are normal kid fears that you're gonna have, like scared of Wolverines or scared of mummies. That makes sense because you're young and you don't know that the real fear is, like, corporate America and working a 9-to-5 for the rest of your life in a place where you don't want to be. Your fear isn't student debt, okay? Your fear is, like, things that are scary. And, you know, I wish these fears were real, okay? Like, why couldn't Wolverines be real, but student debt? That has to be my fear. This Henry Bowers, not scary. Henry Bowers in the new It, scary. That man is scary. Listen. I love this part where they're flipping through the pictures and he comes to life and the picture comes to life. God, I eat it up every time. And in It Chapter 1, when they do the same thing and they're looking through the projector and his hair is, like, blowing in the wind and then we see Pennywise. One thing I want to say is when Bev goes to her old house and the woman is there, same thing happens in It Chapter 2. The old woman, instead of becoming, like, this big giant person, she gets those like, huge gaping wounds. I love that she doesn't turn into this giant person like she does in Chapter 2. Obviously, Chapter 2 had a huge budget and they could basically do whatever they wanted for that. And so I think they just went ahead and did that, which is totally fair. I will say, when the old woman turns into this giant woman in Chapter 2, it kind of takes me out of it and it kind of makes me feel like it made me feel, like, totally not scared anymore when I was watching It Chapter 2. My thoughts have come full circle because there's a portion of this movie where they're adults and Pennywise is showing up as the head of Stan, because we know that Stan, he unalives himself. He's greeting each of them and he's like, Richie, looks like you've got a nose job, but don't worry, nobody can notice. Bev, looks like you still have poor taste in men. Billy, you still have a stutter, you loser. Hey, Wheezy, how's your sex life? Mike, you're a loser, you still haven't left town. What I mean by this came full circle for me is because earlier in this video, I was talking about how I just don't get, like, why don't we have these fears anymore of, like, mummies and werewolves? And obviously it makes sense because these things aren't real and we know that they aren't real. So we're not scared of them because we know a werewolf is never going to show up at my door. That's never going to be a problem that I'm going to have to deal with. But not being able to leave my hometown, getting plastic surgery and people noticing that I've altered my appearance because I was insecure about something or wanted something changed, having poor choice in men and being in relationships that are toxic to me or being with men that hurt me, having no relationships. These are all fears that are totally possible as adults. And it makes sense now in retrospect when I was like, oh, why don't we have this in the, why are we scared of this shit? But it makes sense. As adults, obviously, you're not a kid anymore. Your imagination kind of goes away. And the things you fear they're the real things. They're the things that are more adult fears to have. I wish I was still afraid of mummies and werewolves. That's kind of where Pennywise eats with this. He's basically like, you guys haven't changed. Your fears have changed. Like, God, I don't have to work so hard to scare you guys anymore because all I have to do is talk about your insecurities. Sometimes I get scared that I don't change at all or that I'm the same person as I was. Or will I be the same person in 5 years and will I not have grown or changed at all? I think in terms of fears like that, I don't know if it really comes full circle besides the fact that at the end, it's kind of like we're all in this together. We're friends and we can conquer our fears and we can conquer our insecurities together. All we have to do is bully him right back. I love this. I love the original It. It's just such a classic for me. It's so campy. It's so good. It's simple. I think it's a good movie. I do wish that maybe one day they turn it into a show where they could really break it down and make it like this full-fledged thing. But for now, the adaptations that are out from the book are they are pretty good. And even though It Chapter 2 got a bit of hate, I think it's grown on me and I still love it as part of the whole It franchise. Yeah, I hope you guys like this video. See ya later, Georgie.